Welcome to the CMO Scoop. I'm your host, Lara August. I'm the CEO of Robot Creative. We have worked with thousands of what we call very large small businesses. We write marketing plans and provide marketing leadership to companies on a part-time basis. Those consultants are called fractional CMOs, or Chief Marketing Officers. We have a team of talented directors and a growing network of CMOs that we place with clients, and each of them brings their own unique background and perspective to the table. So I wanted to take advantage of that. And every month I have a conversation with one of our CMOs or directors, and we cover topics and recurring themes that we see in these very large small businesses that we work with. So today my guest is Belinda Gudmundsson. She is our creative director here at Robot. And today we are going to be talking about all things video. And Belinda, you've got an amazing background in video. So if you could please paint a picture of your experience for our audience, that would be great to start.
Sure. I have been working in the marketing and creative field for years now, and I have worked at a corporate level as a national creative director. I have worked at a regional level for a regional drug chain. I have worked in video, everything from scripting it to casting it to traveling across the country to shoot it to helping edit it a little bit. I wouldn't consider myself an editor, but
you're pretty good at it.
Well, thank you. I try. I had some really good coaches along the way, so that was nice. So I've worked in video in pretty much every capacity and watched the evolution of it over the last several decades, actually, and it has changed so much, and it is so integral. So I'm excited to talk about it and hopefully maybe give a few pointers here and there, or at least discuss it and give somebody a really good overview.
Absolutely. So I'm so excited to have Belinda as part of our team because video has become so important, even for small businesses. So this isn't something that's just left for the large businesses that can afford high production value anymore. Video has really become the cornerstone of what performs the highest in almost every platform. So I want to start by just talking about, Belinda, why is video so important?
Well, first of all, you see it everywhere. Here we are doing it, but you see it everywhere. Every social platform, every medium that you can look at. There's digital billboards now that are video in some cases. So it is integral to any business, and no business is really too small. You see people doing explainer videos. It's more engaging. People are more engaged with video. People don't want to just read things nowadays. I mean, there's a time and a place for that in a campaign. But when you look at the engagement boost in a video, it's just heads and tails over what we would normally have in a static campaign. So the conversions are optimized for video. You can humanize your brand. You can actually talk to people and have a conversation with people in video, whether it's a scripted storyboarded video or it's just somebody sitting a talking head on camera. You can still connect your brand and make it authentic and humanize it to an audience. People want to know that. Nowadays, there's so much competition out there that people really want to know who you are. And depending on the demographic you're going after, the authenticity of your brand and your voice and who you are as a person or who you are as a brand or a company is so important when engaging that audience. So, and the quality of video nowadays is different. There is the highly produced video where it's really high end, $100,000, $200,000, $1 million to produce a video. But then look at TikTok, there's somebody sitting there, with their phone up or with a selfie stick, and
it's very entertaining.
The sky is the limit. The sky is the limit. It doesn't matter anymore, but it is important. It's important to be out there and to be competitive especially as a small business owner in that space. If you're not doing it, then you're missing out on it.
Yes. And I think even without any judgment of quality of production, the algorithms in the different platforms, simply, you mentioned it, but I want to stress it, even crappy video performs better than static images and posts or, static graphics across all of the digital channels. I'm not just talking social media. So there's no doubt that it's become more and more important. And so why aren't more businesses using video? What's the hang up?
That's a really good question. I'd like to know too. I think that there's an idea that it's really hard to do video, or it's really expensive to do video. And while those things can be true in some cases, it's really not. As I was just saying, pick up your phone and take a video, walk around your store or your location and show people what's in there and talk about the things that make you unique. People see that all the time. You talk about going down a rabbit hole in any kind of social media nowadays, and it's video after video. And my fun thing right now is trying to decide if it's real or if it's AI, because so much of it's AI, but it's really interesting to do it. So you're thinking most of the time when small businesses, especially businesses have been around for a while, they price tested video a long time ago, or, they know how complicated it is because you have to script it and then you have to get it approved and then you have to have the crew come out here and it's a day down for your company and you've got to shoot all of this stuff. And then it takes a while to edit it and you've got to pick a voiceover and there's so many things that people think about that are preconceived ideas about how difficult it is, but it's really not that difficult anymore. And there's so many types of videos that can be done that depending on how complicated or how expensive you want it to be, there's a video at every level that you're willing to tolerate as a business owner.
Absolutely. So another thing that I personally feel and see is that, Gen X and older typically aren't as comfortable on camera as anybody that grew up as a digital native, right? Like your parents had the phone in their nose from the second that they were born, or they became very comfortable with it in their tweens or their teens. And so I feel that a lot of business owners and leaders that we talk to just dread the thought of having to be on film or on camera. And I mean, so do I, to be honest. Like we talk about it, I'm like here fidgeting with my hair and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I lit properly so that my wrinkles are going away? I don't know what my best angle is. I'm trying to not care. I'm trying to not fidget, but it's hard. Like there's a reality to it. And, we're on this is episode 9 for the CMO Scoop. And honestly, I can speak in public without any problem, but something about putting this on film, knowing it's going to be recorded, having to look at it later for me is just a mental block, but I've gotten over it. And I try to encourage the clients that we work with to just start rolling, just get out there, start doing it. Because I think you're missing out on this huge opportunity. It's not just an opportunity anymore. It's kind of a business requirement. And so I kind of say just start rolling, get used to it. So
right. And you have to, because we're our own worst critics, right? You play it back. I don't even like looking at these. The editor does it. And I'm like, I can't, I don't even want to look at myself. And people are accustomed, as I said, to being their own worst critic, but you look different on video than you do in real life. It's just a fact. I mean, the way the camera lens works and the way lights work and everything, people look different. But no matter how you look, there are people of every color and every look and every size and everything. And the most important thing is just to be yourself, to be authentic. I use that word a lot, but I think that word is so important when engaging people with your business or your product or your personality. Is you just have to be authentic. And whatever that authentic self is, people will like you more if you're authentic and you just don't worry about the other stuff.
I love that. So what are your words of encouragement? How can a small business get started with video on a small budget?
Just start, pick up your phone, get comfortable with it. Like you said, get a selfie stick, dig in, just try to see what it is. But make a short list for people, know what you want to do with your business, outline, practice it. If you want to be on camera yourself, if you don't, find somebody who does, find an employee who's really good on camera, hire a talent if you need to do something like that. Do some role play with individuals to see who might be really good at it. And then worry about the next level of it. You'd be surprised. Some people don't think that they could be really good on camera, people who are introverted or shy or something. And then you see them, you put them in front of a camera and they just become amazing. They're comfortable. They're really great at describing things. They don't stop, they don't stumble. It's kind of crazy. So I would say don't sell yourself short. Give yourself a shot. And then once you get comfortable with that and you know what the messaging is and you know what you want to show and you feel comfortable with that, then, bring in a videographer, hire an agency, hire, somebody who knows what they're doing to raise the level of it, especially if you're going to use it in like an advertising campaign. You're going to have it on broadcast, you're going to have it on cable, even streaming. If you're going into that level where you are going to be in a competitive market with other businesses, other people, you want to make sure that your video can rise to the level of your competition. We see this all the time, and it's not a bad thing necessarily, but if you watch sports programs or you watch national programs on TV or you stream them or something, oftentimes you can kind of tell where the local breaks are versus where the national breaks are based on how the video looks sometimes. So I would say if you're going to be in a competitive space like that, you want to make sure that you hire professionals to bring you up to that level, or at least look as good as you can in that level. But you don't have to do that. If you're posting it on social, you're putting it on your Facebook, you're putting on a TikTok account or Instagram, then you can have all kinds of different levels of video. You're not producing a Super Bowl ad, right? You're not doing that. That being said, so many of the Super Bowl ads in the last several years that you've seen are very off the cuff. They're like, people running down the field with a camera over their shoulder, just shooting things. It's not scripted. It's not the old Super Bowl commercials that you saw 15 or 20 years ago, where it's a $10 million budget and they shot it all across the country. And, you had horses and everything else under the planet. So I would say, don't be afraid. Just think of who you are as a company and what you want people to know about you, and then just dig in.
I love it. So, and that it's a perfect segue into kind of one of what my next questions were, is that for people that don't have experience with video, who haven't done this before, we know the difference between low end and high end and what all of those things are that make something high end. If you could just kind of cover what that range is, like we all know like cameras and selfie sticks and like kind of doing that, but what does it look like as you increase production quality and move, up toward a really highly produced video? If you could kind of paint that picture for everyone, it would be helpful.
The video cost is based on the same thing that most things are. It's on time, it's on equipment, it's on the experience, it's the length of the video, it is how many locations are you going to have to shoot? Are you going to have to hire talent? Are you going to have to hire makeup artists? Are you going to have to hire stylists that go in to, it's a restaurant, you're doing food. All of those things add to the cost of a video. So you can but for, say, you're going to do a standard 30-second spot, you can hire a videographer and maybe someone to do lights for you, and bring somebody in to do that at a relatively inexpensive cost. I mean, on a local level, you can probably, I'm talking local because we're in San Antonio, Texas. I'm not sure across the world. It probably costs more in Great Britain than it costs here in Texas, but you can get a good spot, a good videographer to come in and a good editor to do a spot for anywhere between $1,500 and sometimes $2,000 or $3,000. If you know what you want to do and it's not super complicated. You're shooting a store, you're shooting a location, you're shooting some talent talking, you're doing a talking head where you're sitting and doing an interview with somebody, and then you've got B-roll, the background roll that's going on for that. You can do that really inexpensively. It all comes down to how complicated it is going to be to capture the video, and then how complicated it's going to be to edit it. You could look at an animated video and that can be sometimes $10,000, $20,000. Or nowadays with AI, not that I would suggest using that all the time, especially if you're going to put it on air, but you can look at programs that help editors animate so much more efficiently than it used to be back in the day, Disney and up, where you're doing cell by cell. It's so much easier nowadays.
Animation's priced by the second a lot of times, right?
It is.
So
Well, because it's every frame and every second you have to animate. It's not just one, but you do have the advantage of having a lot of really good technology nowadays that can help do that. So I would say that that's, you're looking at one end to the other. If you're talking Pixar, you're spending a whole ton of money. And if you're shooting, 4 locations across the country, you're spending a whole ton of money. But if you're shooting your single store location or even a couple of multiple store locations and a couple of people in it and what your product is, and you can make it engaging, then it's really it's not as expensive as you might think it is. I would just
That's helpful.
Test it out.
Yeah. So just keep it simple on the front end. Simple shots, simple expectations, right. And so if that's what kind of like a basic production might look like, up to, a more elaborate production, when do you need higher end? Like, when do you need the really high end production quality? Because we're saying like, hey, it's easy to get started and some videos better than no video, but like, when could that work against you? And when do you really need something that's a higher quality level?
I kind of refer a little bit back to where I was talking about. If you're going to be in the Super Bowl, for example, you need a pretty high-end commercial, or you need something that is so low end that is going to stand out because people are like, what the heck was that? Like, did you see
intentional?
That? Exactly. So, and that's not always a bad idea. I mean, it's pretty smart to do that, but I would rise to the level of where you're going to be seen, and make sure that it represents who you are. First impressions can be all you get. So if somebody sees something and they either don't relate to it or they think it looks really bad, then you may not have another opportunity to engage with them. And we know what the cycle is nowadays when people look at things. People see something, they'll see a video or they'll see a commercial or they'll see a post where it's an engaging video. And what do? The first thing they do is they go find this person. They go look at your website, or they go see who you are, or they look at your social accounts and want to see who is this company and what are they doing? And can I relate to them? Do I like them? And that, I would say that that's really important. So if it's going to be at a high level where you're going to be at a high level with your competitors, I would consider trying to make sure that the level of the video that you capture and edit is at that level at least. So unless it's intentional that it's not, and you want to stand out for whatever reason, I would talk to somebody professional about that, though, because that might be a big mistake on your end.
No, I think that's really great advice, is thinking, it's not just what budget do you have? It's where is this going to be placed? Where is it going to be used? What will the competition look like? And then I think just pulling out another thing that you said is, if this is your first impression, and if it might be the only impression, right? Like, is it putting the best foot forward? Are you, it's really different if you use it in advertising or in a situation where it's going to be a first impression versus an internal training video, of course, right? So really thinking about that usage makes a lot of sense. So thank you. Mm-hmm. Once you get started with video, how can a small business get the most mileage out of the first videos that they produce? Because I want anybody that's listening to have a really great experience and to see the opportunity in this. I don't want them to be like, ugh, that was a horrible experience and I don't even think we got anything out of it. So how can you help them get more mileage?
Right. As we talked about, there are so many mediums to advertise or to get video out on nowadays. There's so many social platforms. The way that you can get a video out there is endless. So I would say that to make sure that you get the most mileage out of a video. So identify when you're doing a video. Say you're going to start with something that's a long form video and you're talking about your company, and maybe it's going to be on your website, or maybe you're going to post it somewhere else, or you're going to have it on your YouTube channel. Take that video and identify all of the uses that you can have for it. Can you chop it up into something smaller? If you're thinking about actually doing an advertising campaign, can that be used as an advertising campaign on broadcast, on streaming? Define where you're going to use that video. And then some videos can be cut up in a way that they can be used as a tutorial. So maybe you're talking about a product and you've got products featured in your video, but then you can go back and you can take those little pieces of each of those products and you can do a little introduction with maybe a little tiny graphic card on them that talks about each one of those products that you want to feature. And you can have those on your website. You can have those on your YouTube channel. So you've got shorts that you can use for each of those. I would say that just identifying all of the possibilities of where you can use the video, and then identifying what the standard industry standard length is for those, because you don't want somebody to tune out, is going to be the best thing. You have to plan ahead. You have to plan ahead and know where you're going to use it, what you're going to do. And then it's pretty easy to get those little pieces out of something longer.
I love it. And I think as we were kind of prepping for this discussion, and I've heard you give this advice before, if you're going to go to the trouble to hire photographers, videographers, hire a crew to be out there and capturing it, just spending a few minutes with that brainstorm of what are the different ways we could use it. Once you've already got all of the setup and the people out there, adding in a couple of quick little snippets or quick little spots may not really add much of anything to your, videography costs or your pre-production costs. And you don't necessarily have to go the full production afterwards, but you've captured it while the capturing was good, right? And then you can go ahead and figure out how to use it later. But just taking advantage of each of those situations where you are making an investment will give you more possibilities for future use, I think.
Absolutely, because the major expense, the big expense is in sort of what we call rolling the truck. The big expense is in getting somebody out there. So if they're already out there and they've set up, it's a lot less expensive to say, I need another half hour because I want to actually shoot that and that and that too, than it is to say, can you come back on another day and then we want to capture this. So it's much easier to take advantage of the crew when they're there.
Absolutely. So I want to pause for a second. I think I've seen some things coming in on the chat or the QA. Like, Tangela, do we have any questions that we could answer or take from the audience? If anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop them in there now.
Yes, we do. We've got a couple that are coming up. So one of them is asking, what type of camera are you all currently using on your Zoom screen? Because they say they do not get this level of clarity when they are on Zoom.
Well, thank you. We're using a Nexigo. It's off of Amazon. I think they're under $50, like really inexpensive, but a separate external camera does make a huge difference. And then setting it up a bit higher, right? We also have lighting. So, we make this look like it's we just sat down. That's hopefully the impression that it gives. But Belinda's got 3 lights. She's got a whole light kit around her. We're in separate rooms in the same office. I have some natural light and a ring light to the side of me. So, and the ceiling lights on. So it does take a little bit of work. Lighting is really important. So I think good camera, good lighting makes a huge difference. Thank you, though. I'm glad it looks good.
All right, then we have another question. And this question is, what is the optimal length of a social media video to keep the audience's attention?
Their optimal length. So I would say the optimal length is giving the information that you want to give in an interesting way. And that's it. That's all you want to do. And
it depends on the platform.
Yeah.
Right. Like, not all social media is the same.
Right.
I think, like, with social media, there's a huge range of what's possible. So test. It would be my recommendation. Each platform, you can kind of Google what benchmarks are, and what you can find charts of, like, video engagement and when the engagement drops off, and you can watch that engagement. So YouTube does a great job of telling you exactly which second people drop off. So if you're using YouTube, there's baked in analytics, and the other social channels, you're not going to get quite as much detail. But I think doing some testing, seeing which ones work the best. It's always good, honestly, to throw a bunch of things at the wall when you're first starting to see, but do that very intentionally to measure it and then optimize from there.
Yep. And I would also say that all of the platforms, especially if you're talking about social media, all of the platforms have best practices and advice within those platforms that let you know where the engagement is. So it just depends. That question could be, it depends on where you're going to run it, but they do actually have, like, FAQs will always tell you what the most engagement level is for a certain length of video. So I would definitely do your homework and investigate that.
And it does change. It changes all the time. I mean, LinkedIn has only had vertical video in its own section for about a year. So that's still new, and they change their algorithm like all the time, right? So you need to look at each of the platforms and do a little research depending on where you want to be. So we are still good on time. Belinda, we are fast talkers. So I want to find out, do you have any other, advice or tips, things that'll help people get started?
Well, you were talking about, the different doing your homework and experimenting. I think that's really great advice. Being a consumer of platforms and video and social, looking at TikTok, however you feel about it, looking at what people are doing there, looking at Instagram, looking at a YouTube channel, go down the rabbit hole every once in a while and look at what other people are doing, what other videos are out there. Spend some time looking at, traditional video on some people don't even have, they've unplugged and they don't have, local television or whatever, but people stream, you see networks all the time. So look at what people are doing and what people are saying out there. Just Google it, go online. You don't have to necessarily even watch it on the standard traditional television. You can see and you can go through and look at what video are, but do your homework, see where people are getting the most engagement. You can see the numbers of it. You can see what's popular. You can look at what goes viral and see why did it go viral? What is this crazy thing that are you? And then don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of testing, as you said, some of the different levels of video. People are, you get stuck on Instagram or Facebook or something watching people's door cameras. So you're not expecting, most people nowadays are not expecting some high production level of video. It's just as interesting to see somebody, pick up someone's package and all of a sudden it explodes and you've got paint or confetti all over that person who just took it from their, from their front porch. So people are used to seeing that kind of video. I would say just explore, do your homework, look, and look at your competitors, see what they're doing too, because that's really important. If you want to be competitive as a small business owner, you want to look at what, the next guy over is doing and see how they're engaging with the customer base, because it's going to be your same customer base, obviously.
Yeah, that's how, just if you're wondering how we get a project started here at Robot, every project begins with research. So once we meet a new client, we look at the industry they're in, we look at their direct competitors. So you want to know what your direct competitors are doing. You need to stand out from those that you're really directly competing against. But then we also recommend going and looking a level higher, look at, maybe it's a regional, a local or a regional, go national, go international, go find role models, right? So sometimes you'll find that the local competition isn't hard to beat. You're like, oh, okay, well, this will be easy. That shouldn't be your benchmark, right? You want to go find the absolute best thing that you can find and see how close you can get to that. And another form of research that we do is sometimes if you find that an industry all looks the same, or maybe it's all bad and there's nothing inspirational, we go and find a different industry that has either the same kind of messaging or is going after the same audience or is taking in some way a similar kind of approach. And then you can find really great inspiration in that way that can give you new, fresh ideas and new perspective for an industry. So we start pretty much every project here that same way. And a lot of times we talk through it with a customer too, just to get their buy-in, to understand how they're reacting to the different things we're seeing. And that can be just, I think, a really helpful way to start a project and to get jazzed about it and to do something that's creative and better than you might have if you had just started filming.
Right. Absolutely. And it also informs you as to what sort of the industry standard is for that. And if you want to fall into that industry standard or if you want to go outside of it. But there are all kinds of different videos out there. Some companies or some products will choose to do, the explainer video, talk about what it is and, look at what this does. And this product, you see it all the time, this product can clean this in a million years and well, you've never seen anything like it. So you have these explainers explainer videos, and then you have like really important brand videos that are going to talk about what the brand is and be authentic, like I talked about, and show all of the things, the differentiators that you have in there. There are just the talking head videos where you literally have somebody just talking. What is that within the industry that you're in? What are people normally doing? What is that process? And then once you've done that research, then you get to decide whether or not you want to kind of fall in that. Like the car dealers are a perfect, I'm just a little aside here. Car dealers are the perfect example of this. You look at car dealers and how they advertise and some of the advertising, and you oftentimes see the same type of ads for it. You know, you've got your car and you've got your price point, you got to get the manufacturer in there, but then it's, you know, the best deal, and we've got the best inventory, and we've got the best service, and they kind of all start to sound the same. So if you want to do that and you feel like that's the way you can be competitive in your industry, sound and look the same, then that's great. But, or you can make a conscious choice to say, I'm going to try to do something different here. This is what everybody else is doing. This is what my competition is doing, but I'm going to choose to do it this way because I don't want to look like everybody else and I don't want to fit into that mold.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to kind of give a prompt to kind of like stir some questions out of the people that are in the audience. So I don't know if those of you joining us are planning on producing, filming and producing this video yourself, or if you're planning on hiring people to do it. So, or if there's specific industries that you have questions about, please feel free to put any question at all in the chat, and we're happy to jump in and answer that. So I'll see if that, shakes any more questions out of the bushes, if you have any pressing questions. But in the meantime, Belinda, so you have worked with so many different like videographers. So we've got the pre-production things that happen when you're doing a video, and there's a lot of prep that goes in advance, and then there's the actual like video capture and shoot, and then there's the post-production. So I'd love to kind of break that into chunks and say like, okay, what does pre-production look like? What are the pieces that are usually included in that?
So pre-production can include all kinds of elements to it. Pre-production, I would say that pre-production is the most important part of actually shooting anything. To be prepared, to have scripts written and or approved, to make sure that you know what you're doing, to have a shot list and a schedule organized beforehand. Oftentimes it'll include several meetings. You want to meet with the videographer and lighting, the gaffer, to make sure that everybody's prepared. They know what kind of equipment to bring. They know what kind of lighting they'll need to use. They know what the settings might be where you are. If I can do it, I almost always prefer doing a site check, because you want to do a walkthrough of the location to make sure that you're looking for any possible changes you might have to make. If it's a specific storefront or something where you're going to be shooting items, or maybe a restaurant where you're shooting food, you want to make sure that you look at all the spaces and areas that you're going to be shooting in so that they're clean and they're, free of dust, and they look the best that they can, and they don't have, equipment hanging out somewhere where it shouldn't, and everything's out of order or disorganized. So you want to do that site check. You want to make sure that you've got the timeline scheduled for it. So you've got everything ready. You want to hire your talent if you're going to have talent in the spot. So that can include casting, posting for casting, then going through possibly auditioning, or maybe if they're not speaking, you're just going to cast on what they look like so they fit the picture that you're looking for. If you have to have voiceover talent, you want to make sure that you've got somebody lined up, or who you're going to have in that area. All of that goes into pre-production, and all of that you want to make sure that a client has that all approved and that they know what they're going to be doing. And then you've got all of your freelancers if you need them. Do you need makeup and wardrobe? Do you need a stylist? Are you going to be doing something? How many people do you need to be grips on the set? So you want to work really closely with your DP, with your
Belinda.
Yes.
What's a grip? Just for people that don't know, I just want to small business this for us.
Yeah. So a grip is the person on the set who's basically they're gripping stuff. They're helping move stuff. They're moving.
Perfect.
camera around for you. They're moving the lighting equipment, and depending on the level of set you're on, if you're on a union set or whatever, then the gaffers, the lighters have their rules and regulations. Nobody else gets to touch a light or anything like that. But if you're on a standard, like a local type of commercial spot where everybody's sort of working together and it's a non-union shoot, then a grip will be, laying out the extension cords for everything to be lit. They'll be going to get the extra batteries for the camera if the camera's out. So they're kind of like the handy person on the set that's helping the photographers and the lights and sound.
Thank you.
And all of that. So, but you want to make sure you have all those people. So all of that kind of is pre-production for a shoot. You want to make sure that you have all of that buttoned up and then all of that going in, because that makes capturing what you have to the day of the shoot much, much easier. Your talent's all lined up. You've got people ready. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. They know their lines and they're ready to go.
So being prepared, probably at a minimum, you want to know where you're doing it, look at the location and have a good script put together. But then obviously, like, the more elaborate you get, the more hands on deck you need to handle the grips there, to handle the lighting, to help with the sound, to, help with everything that needs to be done. That's really important. And then, so you're going to capture the video on that, it's a day, it could be a multi-day shoot, it could be multiple locations. So depending on how elaborate that gets, then post-production, what does that look like? What is that whole process?
Yeah. So you have, you want to have a really good editor. And it depends on what you're posting is, are we talking about posting and including animation? So do you need an animator to do that as well? Are you editing just footage? So the editor will take the footage and they'll scrub the footage. You call scrub it. So they'll go through, and we'd love to have everything that we captured be able to be used. But unfortunately, it's not. Someone doesn't say their line right, or somebody drops something, or there's noise in the background and you can hear it, or a plane flies over outside and you can't use any of the audio that you did. So there's a whole bunch of footage normally that you have that you've captured that day that has to go away. And so you scrub it and you get rid of all the stuff that you're not going to be able to use. So the editor will do that. And then the editor will take a look and they'll look at the script and they'll look at, usually you have the shots with the script. So it's like, what's going to be said and what's the picture going to look like? And they'll take the video and they'll edit it based on what that script looks like and what the shots look like. And then after that, then they'll make sure that the sound is right. They'll go through and they'll make sure that the lighting is right on it. If they have to Photoshop anything out of it, they can, you can usually tweak it a little bit, but they'll make sure that it's cohesive. And then they'll add in their graphics. Is it something that you're doing an ad and you've got a price on there that you want to put, or you want to have graphics on there that reiterate whatever somebody's saying on camera. So you can add those graphic layers into there and then put it all together. And then that's usually when you get to the first rough cut, is they'll send that out. And then you get to make edits based on, how you feel about it. They may have picked a shot that you don't like, or that the client doesn't like, and you want them to replace the shot, or, they didn't recognize sometimes, I work with amazing editors, but sometimes they didn't recognize that, the person in the background was doing something really strange and you don't want to show that. So you have to get another shot in there. There's all kinds of reasons to replace shots, but
so as you're describing all of this, it's probably pretty important, the higher end of the production, to have somebody who's watching for all of those things, saying, we need to retake this, or, hey, there was some background noise, or you're picking your nose in the background, or I don't know what the things might be, but I know that I've worked with different people who are kind of directing on set, who some do more takes like that and some try to capture it all at once, but there shouldn't be any hesitation to do multiple takes and to capture. It's digital is practically free, right? Like you have a time limit if you have a crew, like you don't want to waste anybody's time, but you'd be better off retaking and capturing it then. Because what happens, if you go back to editing and you have somebody, again, like picking their nose in the background or doing something that the sound is just absolutely terrible. It becomes much harder to fix after the fact, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You want to make sure when you're capturing it that that you're capturing it the best that you can. There's going to be little things that you see and everything, but you have people looking for background. I mean, it all depends on the level of production you're doing. I mean, it's very different if you're, doing a full-fledged feature length movie. You have people on set who are doing one thing and that's all they're focusing on. You've got the continuity person that if you've taken 30 takes, they make sure that hand starts in exactly the same place that it started before, because if you have to edit and use that one with that one shot where they ended, you've got to make sure that it's in the same spot. So we don't normally have to do stuff like that on a commercial shoot or a video shoot or an explainer video, anything like that. But you do want to be cognizant of it. If somebody had a full glass of water and all of a sudden they're drinking the water throughout it and you're taking the same take over and over again, you're going to realize by the time you edit this together that they started with a full glass of water and they didn't drink anything and they have a little tiny glass of water. So you just have to be really conscious of stuff like that.
And everybody, you've always got that one friend who's great at catching those things in movies, right? So again, usually what we're doing for commercial purposes are shorter than that, but it's important.
Yep.
Excellent. Did we get any specific questions or requests, Tangela, from anybody out there?
We did, yes.
Great.
One question is, what is a quality microphone that would be reasonably priced for a small business?
Well, there's so many, there are so many microphones out there. I would say, first of all, what are you using it for? Are you using it for something like this where you're doing, you're doing like Zoom calls? Is it for, that would be my first question. I think that
Do you need it on an arm? Yeah. Are we?
Yeah,
What?
exactly. There are so many microphones. Like we're using a Fifine here, and Fifine is okay. There are condenser mics. So Newman, I think Newman is one that I've used in the past, and I've heard that they're good. Audio Technica also has pretty good microphone quality. So, and it's really budget friendly for small businesses. So I would look at those. The other thing, and I hate to say this, but go online and look at reviews, because depending on what you're using it for, are you going to be a podcaster and you're going to use this thing every single day? Then you're going to probably want to look at something that's, a condenser mic that's a really higher level. And if you're just talking about Zoom calls or calls like or like a video that we're doing here with talking heads, then it's probably not as important. The other thing is that sometimes people think it's microphones when it's really the settings on microphones or the background in the microphones. So make sure that whatever mic you're using, that you've either got their user manual there and you look at what the optimal settings are for whatever you're capturing with that, because sometimes that's what it is you just don't have the right settings on the microphone.
Or you're in a concrete room like we are, right? Like our office is all concrete. And so we've got actually blankets thrown around to try to buffer the sound off of all of the hard surfaces. And we have this curtain that we put up in our main conference room for the same reason, just because every Zoom meeting has these horrible echoes. So if you guys are hearing that it sounds like we're in a concrete cave, it's because we are, and we're trying to fight it as best we can. But you see everybody, depending if you're doing really informal videos, all of the social media videos and stuff like that, the latest trend is like little fuzzy mics. Everybody, went from trying to have hidden mics or higher looking production quality to just outright like walk around with a fuzzy mic. So Amazon reviews, I think, are great for things like that. So, right. I mean, Belinda gave you a range of higher production, a step higher that's still affordable for small businesses. If you're doing like clip-on mics, or you need lavalier mics to be hidden, or if you need them to be wireless, like it just really depends on the requirements. So Tangela, I don't know if they shared anything more about the type of requirements they have for what they're thinking.
They did, as you were talking. So I'm not sure if you want to add more to it, but they did clarify that it's mostly for social media, for Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They are a grocery store and looking to create better videos across their marketing platforms.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. So I would definitely look at a little bit of a higher end mic for that, though, because one of the really hard things for grocery stores is that you've got so much background noise. You have so much going on in the background that if you're actually trying to capture it, if you're trying to capture it during business hours, it's going to make it a little more challenging for you. So I would I would investigate the higher end microphones for something like that. And sometimes that expense is not what you would think it would be, but also like Laura was talking about the fuzzy mic, having the guard on it, the wind guard on something, that's also important too. You see those big giant fuzzy things that go on the top of them, they look like little fuzzy hair. Putting those on mics, especially in a big environment where it's kind of a cavern, and then you've got a lot of background noise, that can help dull the noise down some there. So.
Yeah, and there's probably a way to do creative video capture depending on what they're trying to accomplish with the video. Absolutely. Where, like you mentioned, if you're doing it during business hours, you could get some B-roll of things happening during business hours, and then you could do other filming where you need to have isolated sound or more crisp sound without any of that interference that you could do before or after business hours or at a time where you don't have all of that interference. So you might be able to be creative with still showing the hustle bustle and the customers, but also capture some good sound separately.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You could do like a creative story about what happens when everybody leaves the grocery store. All the grocery items come to life. You give them their whole personality for each of them, and talk about what goes on there. It might be interesting.
Belinda's also an actor, so like she would love to give a voice to every product. I know where she's headed with this. D'Angelo, you're off mic. Are there more questions or follow-ups to that?
There is another question. So this question is, has your company experimented with AI-generated videos, or does it depend on the client? Is it important to state that you are using AI-generated content if you do? And is it something that you see being well received by audiences?
From a policy standpoint, we are not currently allowed to produce AI-generated video for our clients without their explicit permission. So you can't copyright something that's produced by AI. We can't guarantee that it's original work if it's done by AI, and clients are paying us for original work. So most of what we are currently using AI for is to speed production. So AI is not coming up with anything. It's changing background colors, or it's doing more menial tasks that can be done much faster now. So I'm actually like a super fan of surrealistic AI videos, and we've done a lot of experimenting, and we're doing more fun stuff with it. But for us as an agency, that's kind of like an off limits thing at this point in time for our team. Not that we may not go there in the future, but for right now, we're limiting it. We have some clients that have given us permission, not with video as much, but for social media copywriting or other things, to use AI to quickly identify snippets out of the videos that are going to be the most engaging, or to quickly duplicate social posts across other platforms once we've gotten one that's already written. So that's my take on how we're dealing with AI.
Right. And like you said, we really do want something that's authentic. We want something that's real. I think a really interesting use for AI video that doesn't cross sort of the copyright line is when you storyboard something, if you really want it to be a video, using AI to show what that might look like in the space of what you're doing, because you can do a storyboard picture there. But if you're actually saying, I want this type of background, and this person is going to be doing this. I'm actually going to shoot this, but they're going to be doing this, to show an example of what that might look like. It's probably a really helpful use of AI, combining that with video to show this is what we're thinking about, and then we're going to actually capture this in real life.
Well, and we use that for photography too, right? It's like we have a concept, and before we used to have to sketch it out, or we would have to Photoshop the heck out of it. It used to take so much work to sell a client on an idea or a concept, or even our team just to review. Like, it's like you got to get it out of the designer or the creative's head to try to demonstrate or show, here's what we're thinking. And so quickly generating things, that has become very easy and actually really fun to be able to play with more concepts quickly. And then that's not the end product. That's just, it's like the dummy or the proof. And then we're going to go shoot it for real later.
That's the last one for now.
Okay, awesome. Well, I just want to be sensitive to time, so we're probably going to go ahead and wrap up. Belinda, do you have Any other advice or tips, final thoughts?
No, I mean, I would just say, experiment, be fearless. If you are fearful, find somebody to help you be less fearful. And if you need to talk to professionals about it, that's great. Talk to friends. There's so many people nowadays who are doing this. Talk to your 20 or 30 something year old child, nephew, niece, cousin, sister, brother, who's really good at it and who does it, because video is just a necessity nowadays. So just get your toe in there, stick your toe in the pool, test, experiment, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's how people get better, is by making mistakes. So it's okay. It's good.
I love it.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Belinda. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. On our next episode, I'm going to be talking to Lana Harris about AI and SEO. So you're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be super interesting. And we're recording that live on Thursday, February 12th at noon Central Time. If you missed the announcement at the beginning, we have a link to a brief survey. Please take a moment to give us some feedback. Hopefully this has been helpful. And finally, we don't have permission to message you outside of Eventbrite unless you opt in, and you had to probably do it in the very beginning. So the best way to stay in touch is to join our mailing list. That way we can notify you of upcoming episodes if you want to join us live, but it's also going to give you access to articles and tools and things that are not available through Eventbrite. So you can follow us on Eventbrite for notifications about upcoming live, but the past episodes are also available on YouTube. It takes us about a week or so to get those recordings live. We have my link tree in the chat. And so if you just click on that one link after we, close out of the video and the recording, you'll be able to access all of the links even after we close out. So want to thank you all for joining this live recording of the CMO Scoop.